Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ten, and today is part 4 of our mushroom growing journey. In the last video, we made our substrate, and since then, as you see, the jars have fully colonized. Look at that pearly, snowy, beautiful mycelium. There's also a few patches in the jars where you see that it didn't fully colonize, but that's okay. You don't have to worry about that. That could happen sometimes if the grains dry out or if you have a heat source and that part gets a little too warm, the mycelium won't colonize that spot. But if it's like this, where it's like 99.999% colonized, you are perfectly fine and ready to move on to the next step. Now, before we could put our tubs together, we want to make a liner. And the reason why we want the liner is you want a portion of the substrate to be in a dark area and a portion to be in a light area. This will allow the mushrooms to know which direction they're supposed to grow in. So what I like to do is I like to use the bottom of the tub to measure out a black heavy-duty garbage bag. Then I just take the corners and fold them down and tape the sides. This way it takes the shape of the bottom of the tub. For a little added support, what I like to do is then take the edges and fold them down and tape them over. What this does is it ends up giving a little bit of rigidity to the liner, and you'll see this will come in handy much later on, because instead of putting the liner in the bottom of the tote, I flip it upside down and I have the liner on the lid and the large portion on the bottom. This allows just ease of access for when you're picking the mushrooms so that you don't get contaminations in there. Now, as you could see, the reason why I purchased this crappy stiller chamber is because you could fit one of the 56 quart totes inside of there. And we have our black liner. We also have 2 jars of fully colonized grains, which have been shaken up to break them up in preparation for inoculating our substrate. We also have our bags of substrate that we made in the last video. As you may know by now, with anything related to mushroom growing, you're gonna need to sterilize everything with rubbing alcohol. Spray everything down, all your surfaces, spray down your liner, spray down your tub, spray down your scissors, spray down your work area, and wipe everything down. Super important, you don't want to have any contaminations. Now you take your first bag of substrate and we dump it out in the bottom of our liner. Level it out nicely. Now we take our colonized seed spawn that has been pre-shaken. Then we dump it onto the leveled substrate. Again, rubbing alcohol. Clean your hands after touching the jars. Now, you want to mix up the seed spawn with some of the substrate down at the bottom and break up any of the larger clumps. Again, sterilize, cut open the second bag of substrate, and dump it on top. This will end up giving you this kind of sandwich effect with substrate on the bottom and substrate on top. Again, sanitize with rubbing alcohol. And what you're going to want to do is even out the top and just do like a little blendy, twisty motion to stir up some of the grains. This way you'll have some on the bottom, some on the top, and most of them in the middle layer. Now you could see where those stiff edges come in handy with the building of this tub. If I hadn't stiffened up those edges, it would just be flopped over on the side or flopped inside, and it would make this process a lot harder than it needs to be. And that's it. Once the grains are mixed up, they're ready to sit in a nice, warm, dark place for about a week or two until the substrate is fully colonized. Now, I also promised that I would show you how to make mushroom bags, but with my luck, the still air chamber ended up getting really humid inside, and as you see, the video quality just keeps getting worse and worse. But all it was taking the substrate bag, cutting open the seed spawn bag, and just putting one into the other, mixing it up, and taping it off. And that's it. Then you want to put it into a warm place, just like the tubs, and let it colonize for the next week or two. A day later, you could see it's already very humid inside of there, and 3 days later, you could see a lot of the grains that were closer to the top have already started colonizing, and on day 4, it's even more colonized. By day 5, the top was almost fully white. After about 10 days, it was ready for fruiting, but that'll be for another episode. Until then, happy growing!